It's time for Ask Mike Mondays. Mike answers one listener's question every week. Here's Michael Becker and Paul Peebles.
Welcome to Ask Mike Mondays. I'm your host, Paul Peebles, National Underwriter for Old Capital. And joining me today again, smartest guy in the room, Mr. Michael Becker.
Hey, Paul.
I should call him the mayor of Beckerville. Mr. Mayor, how are you today?
Doing well.
No Stormy Daniels background on you, Mr. Mayor?
No, we're not. Thank goodness. I'll just say no. I won't make a poor joke on the podcast.
So the mayor of Beckerville, who has over 5,200 doors that he has bought and sold, multifamily expert, I would imagine, and he has gone from being a loaner of money at one of the largest national banks to being an owner of real estate. His group, SBI, owns over $500 million in apartments in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. He knows his stuff. So, Michael, before we get into Ask Mike Monday question, tell us a little bit about what your expectations are for this great Old Capital Multifamily Conference.
We've beaten the drum for many weeks now about it, but we're just really excited about the upcoming conference. It's September 13th. It's going to be at the AT&T Stadium where the Dallas Cowboys play. The keynote speaker is going to be excellent. It's going to be Roger Staubach, who's not only a football legend, he's a commercial real estate legend. Built his company up and sold it for nine figures to JLL about a decade ago. So he's certainly a man who knows a thing or two about commercial real estate and how to be very successful at it. So hopefully he'll impart a bunch of wisdom. On top of just hearing him speak, there'll be all the players across the state, and hopefully multiple other states will be in town. The people that actually are out there in this business doing it, selling you guys multifamily properties. So if you guys want to get networked, this is a great event to get networked with. We're expecting over 700 people. So not only other people that you potentially meet and get into a business relationship with, there's also plenty of brokers there as well. So if you're serious about getting into the workforce housing space, this is the place to be, period.
Michael talks about networking as being the three things. Yes, that is the three things. Networking with possible other investors and other people that have similar mindsets. Networking with the top producing listing brokers of multifamily apartments in the Dallas-Fort Worth, Austin, San Antonio, Houston area. And then with vendors, people that like Katie Anderson with Save Water Co., who was on the podcast about 2 months ago talking a little bit about how she saves apartment owners huge amounts of water through water conservation. Property management companies, attorneys, insurance brokers. These are the best of the best that actually come to our event, and you want to get to know them. The only way you're able to do it is actually jump in a Southwest jet and come on down to see us.
Yeah, you're certainly going to have expectation. You should have the expectation of learning some stuff. It's going to be topical about the state of the market. We're also going to try to be very tactical and practical about what are the ways, I'm going to host a broker panel and we'll talk about what are the ways you get their attention, what are the ways you get your offers accepted. So there's going to be a lot of that type of information, but more than anything, it's really about the value of networking. And for a few $100s for a ticket for an all-day event that includes lunch and a happy hour afterwards, it's the cheapest thing you can pay for. The value that you can get if you go out and apply yourself is immense compared to the cost of the ticket and a plane ticket to come from California or New York or wherever to into Dallas.
All right, Mike, let's pound the table on the question. We have actually two questions today. So it's Ask Mike Monday 2. When buying a Class C apartment, which are normally built in the 1970s or earlier, 1, what normally are the largest make-ready items or repairs in terms of building materials used? Is galvanized piping system the major concern, or is it asbestos, which I think may cause the big problem of remodeling, or what else? And then the second part of that question, 2, what are the biggest mistakes investors tend to make when buying older apartment buildings?
Yeah, so I'll kind of answer these two together. Really, the biggest mistakes I've seen when they're buying older apartment buildings are just kind of not doing the best job with their physical due diligence, not hiring a professional to walk all the units, not to check out the major components of the building like roofing, plumbing, foundation, electrical systems, things like that. So make sure, we've had Brian Amos on the podcast. If you also go to the website, the Old Capital Podcast website, which is where you can sign up for those tickets that we just beat the drum on, didn't mention, but so certainly go to oldcapitalpodcast.com. There you can sign up for the tickets. But also there you'll find some videos that Paul did with the engineer that I've hired many, many times. And Paul has had a very long relationship with Brian Amos. And he'll explain some of the major components of these apartments and what you want to look for when you're checking out the sewer system or electrical system or whatever the major components are. So the biggest mistake kind of is really not doing a good physical inspection of the asset and setting aside the money up front. That your lender will typically, not only loan you 75% of the purchase price, they'll loan you 75% of the renovation dollars as well. So you should get the dollars from the lender while they're available in the front of the deal, cure the deferred maintenance, and that gives you a good base when you're going forward. So that's one of the biggest mistakes I've seen people make on a repeated basis is just not having enough money set aside up front. Transitioning into the first part of the question, really, what are some of the major make-ready items that cause problems? Plumbing certainly could be an issue. Every property is a little different. So your physical inspection will kind of lead you to tell you which ones you should pay most attention to. But having cast iron sewers, that certainly is a problem on these older deals. They're iron systems, and these things are 40, 50 years old at this point if they're built in the 70s or 60s.
They were Class A buildings 40 years ago, but they're not so much anymore.
Yeah, and so just over time, unlike the PVC sewers that they put in now, that the bottom of these cast iron sewers will rust out. Then you start getting sewer backups, and you have to dig down 8 or 10 feet underneath your building, tunnel it out, and fix a 8 or 10 foot section of the pipe, and then then you'll have another one and another one, and another one. This just kind of happens on these older deals. Not understanding that and having money set aside, that's certainly one of the major issues on these older buildings that have.
So I'm going to go back to that for 1 second. Is that how do you tell some of these properties that have backups in their sewer lines? What's the clear thing that Michael, when you walk some of these older properties and you go to the cleanouts, which is the hole that you can kind of stick a camera down, or it's something that you can stick a kind of a router into. The biggest thing that you can tell there's a problem is that it backs up. And when it backs up with high pressure, and some of that sewer water comes out, and you see little pieces of white paper that comes out that you know that you have a problem. So when you're walking some of these older buildings, that's kind of your first indication that you may have a plumbing issue. You may have a crack in the plumbing line, and what they try to do is they throw lime on it to kind of kill the smell. So it's a white on white type of a deal. So just a little FYI when it comes to sewer lines.
Yeah, and if you walk around in your buildings and you see little white sewer caps popping up, those are PVC. If you see, black or kind of rusted iron looking, those are cast iron. Those are some pretty easy telltale signs for non-plumbers for you to kind of quickly identify what type of plumbing that you have. But typically about the early 80s is when it kind of transitioned over from cast iron to PVC. So pretty much everything in the 70s has cast iron as the majority of the sewer lines. So that's certainly one issue. Another issue to pay attention to is kind of the siding of the property. So these older buildings were all built with wood siding, or T111 is what it's called, or masonite was what they put on the 80s. It's just kind of another all terms for different types of wood siding. What they started putting on in the kind of the late 80s, 90s, and newer, or if you're going and you're doing a bunch of extensive carpentry work, what we do now today is hardy board siding. So that is a pressed concrete, kind of looks like the same siding as wood, but it's concrete, so it lasts forever and ever and ever and holds paint longer. You don't have all the wood rot. So if you have a building that still has a wood siding, just know that your paint on the wood will last 3 to 5 years, and your paint hardy will last closer to 9 or 10 years. So you have less times you have to paint it, you have less carpentry repairs, things like that. So if you're able to, and the property hasn't been hardied, make sure you hardy at least all the exposed sidings, all the stuff on the exterior of the building. The interior corridors tend to last a little bit better because they're not directly exposed to all the weather, the rain, the sun, all that good stuff. So that's another thing that can kind of pop up. Then inside the units, you have all the things from having old appliances, if you have aluminum wiring, if that hasn't been properly collared or pigtailed, basically retrofitted, that's a potential fire hazard, cause other issues, just things like that. Then just on your normal turnover cost. Most of the sophisticated owners now, both for able to raise rents, but also to reduce turnover costs, have been going to having the sheet vinyl or vinyl plank flooring in all the common and wet areas in these units, and going in and updating all the lighting fixtures and plumbing fixtures. Not only does that allow you to able to push your rents, but be more aesthetically appealing, having the brushed nickel fixtures versus the old gold or brass fixtures like they did in the 70s and 80s. But it also kind of reduces just, that light fixture breaking because it's newer, the black appliance being new versus the almond or the white appliances from the 80s or the 70s. So those are some things that you should kind of look at. So the more the units that have already been upgraded, the less likely you can have that expense on a turnover or just kind of a basic repair when your dishwasher goes out because it's 30 years old.
You would be amazed on some of these older properties, the condition that some of these tenants live in and the condition that the landlords keep these properties in. Now, I'm not going to tell you that these are bad landlords, but some of them are just disconnected from the property. I mean, I've seen people who bought the property 10 years ago never have been back to the property to take a look and see what kind of condition these properties are in, and just relied upon the management company. They've never seen interior pictures. They don't know how these tenants take care of the property. Typically, when it starts going south, the tenants kind of have a reflection of how they will maintain that property. So if it's maintained pretty poorly, the tenants are going to maintain that property even worse, and kind of spirals out of control. So when you do walk some of these properties, the tenant's been there for 5 or 7 years, and the landlord is a disconnected landlord, I would say kind of a slumlord, so to speak. They really have no idea. But make sure that when you walk these properties, walk with open eyes and see what you can do to fix these properties and get these good paying tenants, and you may have to change out the tenants to get better tenants, but you're going to change them out when you do additional repairs to the property to upgrade the property. So, and again, there's a lot of these folks out there that will live in those kind of conditions. Let's try to make these properties nicer when you own the property. So, Michael, anything else to add?
No, that's it. Just make sure that you do good physical inspections. Make sure you have experienced people on your team that help you with that, and experienced commercial mortgage broker that you talk to. Paul, I kind of affectionately refer to him as the multifamily Rain Man, because he's seen it all over the years, and especially if you're in the matrix market, he's probably financed out a property 1, maybe 4 times over his professional career, so he kind of knows where the bodies are buried on a lot of these assets. So it certainly can kind of tell you how it is, and try to give you some things to look out for, so you don't get caught with your pants down buying a property and not making sure you had enough money set aside. I mean, a simple phone call from him could solve a lot of those problems within a few moments of just talking with an experienced person like Paul or any of the old capital guys.
Thank you, Michael. Yeah. Thanks for the pat on the back. We appreciate that. But if somebody wanted to get more information about what you guys do at SPI, what's the best way to get a hold of you?
Yeah, if you guys are wanting to find out more information about what we do at my company, SPI Advisory, the easiest way to do that is just go to our company's website, which is www.spiadvisory.com, which is SPI like spy, advisory.com. There's a contact us page. You can fill that out, and we're always happy to have a 10 or 15 minute telephone call with listeners of the podcast and explain a little bit more about what we do and how you can invest with us.
Sounds great. Again, smartest guy in the room, Michael Becker. I'm Paul Peebles. Have a great day.